Well, the White House reportedly will allow troops at the U.S. southern border to use lethal force if necessary. This comes as the Pentagon estimated Tuesday that those deployed to the border will cost a total of $72 million. There are currently 5,900 active duty soldiers stationed there. They're poised to block a caravan of migrants headed for the U.S. Well, after more than a month of traveling from Central America, the caravan has come to a halt in Tijuana, Mexico. On Tuesday, the president defended the deployment.
As far as the troops, they are proud to be on the border. They are proud to be defending our nation. And we're not letting people in. Our soldiers are doing an incredible job. And if you look at the walls that they're building, and if you look at all the barricades that they're putting up, they've done a great job.
CBS News national security correspondent David Martin joins me now from the Pentagon. So, David, we understand that the military has been given the authority to use force at the border. What more do we know?
Well, a couple hours ago, Pentagon reporters spoke with Defense Secretary Mattis about this subject. He confirmed that he had received last night a letter from White House Chief of Staff John Kelly giving him new authorities to use in backing up the Border Patrol agents at the southern border. However, he made it absolutely clear that he has no intention of giving U.S. troops on the border any kind of authority to open fire on immigrants. For one thing, he said he has received no request from the Department of Homeland Security, which is in charge of the southern border, no requests from DHS for the use of lethal force. And he said he has no intention of arming military police with firearms. They will be carrying shields, face masks, and billy clubs, and that's what they will use to subdue any immigrants that attempt to commit violence against Border Patrol agents. Then the question is, well, does that mean that the U.S. military is taking over law enforcement by stopping immigrants from interfering with the border police? He says that the only detention of immigrants that the U.S. military could get involved in is the sort of minutes-long holding of someone that's trying to commit violence before they turn him over or her over to law enforcement. So he insists that the U.S. military still has no arrest authority along the border, and he also made it very clear that he has no intention of doing anything but a very, very conservative implementation of what that letter he received from Chief of Staff Kelly would authorize him to do.
Sounds very clear where the Defense Secretary stands on this matter. I want to also ask you, David, do we have a sense when those troops are expected to leave the border?
Well, on paper, the mission lasts until December 15th. The mission could easily be extended past December 15th by another piece of paper, but right now it's scheduled to end on December 15th, and that means that as Secretary Mattis said just a short time ago, some of the troops, not necessarily all of them, but some of the troops will be home by Christmas.
And David, there are some who have actually criticized that $72 million figure as completely unnecessary for this effort. Can you put that into perspective for us as exactly where that money is going?
Well, first place, you're talking about $72 million in a budget that is $716 billion. So 72 million is a small decimal point in the Defense Department budget. It's going to things like purchasing the concertina wire. It's going to things like the fuel for helicopters that are being used to move Border Patrol agents along the border. Now, just because you have this enormous $716 billion budget, that doesn't give you an excuse to waste any of it. So the question really is, was this operation necessary? And the Commander-in-Chief decided it was. There are a lot in the military who have been quietly rolling their eyes, but in terms of U.S. military operations, $72 million is not a large sum of money. It will buy you one F-18 jet fighter, but it's not enough to buy you one F-35 because the F-35 cost $100 million, just one plane.
Yeah, it puts it into perspective, certainly. You know, David, while I have you, I want to ask you about Thanksgiving Day in the military. We know that presidents have typically used this time to travel to war zones. I remember President George W. Bush when he went to Iraq in 2003 on Thanksgiving. President Obama went December 2010. We know Tuesday, President Trump said that he will eventually be going to a war zone. Has he seemed to hesitate to make these kinds of trips?
Well, when he said he would be going to a war zone, I immediately thought that meant he might be going to visit the troops on the border to have turkey with them on Thanksgiving Day, because, of course, he views the southern border as facing an invasion of immigrants. I have no information that he's going to do that, but that was the first thing that popped into my head. On the issue of visiting the troops in real war zones, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, the Secretary of Defense was asked about that just a couple hours ago, and he said, don't worry about it. He said, for one thing, there are a number of places he has advised the president not to go simply for security reasons. And, you know, if you have to surround the president with excessive security and to visit a war zone, you're almost sending the wrong message, that you've achieved so little security in that country that you have to take these extraordinary measures, which happened when President Bush visited Iraq and also happened when President Obama visited Afghanistan. So the Secretary of Defense does not seem upset, and in fact, the way he portrayed it a few hours ago, he's a little bit relieved that the Commander-in-Chief is not visiting these war zones.
Yeah, it certainly is not without its risks, and you make a good point about security and the images, the messages that it sends as well. David Martin, happy Thanksgiving to you, David. Do you cook, David? Will you be cooking?
No, but I eat.
That's good. That's also, we need eaters on Thanksgiving Day as well. David Martin coming to us from the Pentagon. Thank you very much.